Every sports fan has an opinion. Well, these are ours. Welcome to Brock and Pep's Unsportsmanlike Convo.
Right.
And here are your hosts, Brock Fleming and Pep Cariotti.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What is that? Okay, so it's May 25th, 7 p.m. It's your host, Brock, and on the other screen is my co-host, Captain Marvelous, Mark Messier, apparently. Hey, Mark Messier. What's with the magazine, bud?
My collection of old Sports Illustrateds took a tumble, and one of the ones that was displayed on the floor was this old one here. It must have been, well, when the Rangers won the Cup, would have been 1994. That was the year. That was the O.J. Simpson year.
That was the year the greatest NHL game came out for Sega Genesis.
That the absolute greatest. Absolutely. So yeah, this magazine fell on the floor, but it's the hockey edition, and it's I guess it would have been the finals. It was the Canucks and Rangers are on the cover here, so that's pretty cool.
All right. Yeah. Well, hey, there for those watching, I got old Sports Illustrated, the one you gave me. I gotta bring one out every time now when we start getting into college football season. Shout out to the listeners that are tuned in. I posted a thing on our Facebook group page today to make sure that you guys accept and go to the StreamYard /Facebook to make sure you guys accept their terms so they can use your name and profile when you guys are leaving comments. So it makes it a lot easier for us to track and also give you credit for the comments. You guys are posting a lot of really good stuff. But when we don't know who it is, sometimes, well, I'm pretty sure I know who this is probably, but here we go. I don't have a name or a picture for this. So go Leafs go. Could be anybody. It could be Pep, although he's wearing a Habs jersey. So my guess is not. How are you feeling about the Habs Leafs right now, bud?
I don't feel good. I mean, so watching the game yesterday, it's all Leafs, and all four lines skate hard. They forecheck hard, and the Habs just seem like they're a step.
All right. So Pep is the one that told me that I was a little choppy a second ago. And so I was all concerned about my setup, but really, I think we know where the problem is because Pep just got booted. Anyway, if he's following up on the Habs Leafs series, other than the first series, I'll tell you, Carey Price is the only reason the Habs aren't getting blown out by a lot. They're getting outshot. I feel like they're, other than game one, which is when Tavares went down with that injury, and it was pretty scary. I think that the Leafs have kind of been all over them. So kudos to Carey Price. He's kind of back in full effect. P-Dog is back. So, Pierre, you thought it was my problem? I don't think it's mine. Anyway.
Am I back in the – there we are. I'm back. Sorry. You know what? The weather's kind of taking a turn here, and I wonder if it's causing any kind of issues. Anyway, if that happens again, Brock, you got me covered. But you had asked me about the Leafs and Habs, and I just wanted to mention about, if you want the best example of one team dominating the other, just watch their power plays. Montreal can't even get a shot on net. They can't control the puck. Toronto forechecks hard. They've got a man on the puck all the time. And then you watch the Habs when they're on the penalty kill, and they're just letting the Leafs be Harlem Globetrotters on the perimeter. And it's the difference between the two teams. Is one is speed, strength, and the other just sort of plays like rope-a-dope and waits to attack. And if they don't win tonight, it's over. Montreal is not winning 3 in a row. So tonight's do or die.
That's basically when you were cut off. I basically said the same thing. Other than Carey Price, there's no reason that the Habs should be in this series. They're getting outplayed. The puck movement by the Leafs, they're all over them. But Price is keeping them into the game, which is, again, to be expected and kind of par for the course for the Habs, and that's what they did last year. So it's nice to see him back into his sort of form, but the Leafs are giving him a pretty good peppering of shots. We sort of jumped in real quick to the hockey because you're wearing that Habs jersey, but I wanted to take a quick second. So Jen and Keith Hiscox, for those who don't know, Keith Hiscox is part owner of the Crazy Horse, who's one of the friends of the show, and he's the Crazy Horse is a big sponsor on Cap City Beats as well. But the two of them, they're big dog lovers and have taken in multiple dogs over the years. And Jen just shared a thing on Facebook. I guess somebody she knows in that community is looking for someone to foster a couple of pit bull mixes for about a month. So I guess what happened is, I don't know, it's not by law, but whatever the organization kind of monitors dogs and stuff, I guess accusing of being purebred. Anyway, the owners have to get paperwork together to show that they're not purebred pit bulls, but they are show dogs. They're very good with kids and with other dogs and very well behaved. And anyway, the owner's just kind of in a pickle right now, and they're looking for somebody, if anybody would be open to fostering these dogs for about a month. All expenses paid, everything will be covered, just while they kind of get the paperwork and stuff done. I guess they risk losing the dogs in 6 days if they don't find somebody to sort of house them for the next month or so. And it's funny. I just did an interview with my daughter, who was asking me questions about, what it would take to get a dog here, and start with a dog, and all the benefits of having dogs and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it was well done, but I think it went a little bit in the direction she wasn't hoping for, because after Chubbs, I really wasn't looking to open up for that kind of I don't know, say commitment, but anyway, for me, it's going to be tough to replace Chubbs. Anyway,
of course.
So anyway, this came up, and it was something I asked her real quick if I could put it on air, just to see if anybody in the area would be interested in doing that. I know we have a lot of pet lovers out there. So if at all you're interested, send us a comment or something through this or on Facebook of the group. Anyway, you guys can get a hold of us fairly easily. So yeah.
Very cool.
Anything else for headlines for you before we get going?
No, I mean, we were going to shout out. I'm not sure if we have the graphics ready for it. We can do it later on, but I wanted to shout out.
I got it.
You got it? I want to shout out my man Hashem at the Wheel Deal, full service auto mechanic, who took care of you too, I think, last week. Did he not?
Yeah. So Hashem's a real good friend of one of my good friends, Corey, who owns Specialized Specialized Image Auto. Big car detailing place in Bell's Corner. And every time I need something to do with my truck or whatever, I'll usually give Corey a call and find out what his thoughts are. And I was, when you get bored and you're sitting at home and you just kind of like, you start looking for something to buy or something to do. And I started looking at, Corey was posting pictures of his truck, and he had these real nice rims on it and tires. And I was like, I should get different tires. And I'm like, maybe I should get different rims. Anyway, yada, yada. I went in there with some spacers to try on the truck, and Hashem threw them on there, and basically took a look and kind of gave me his opinion, and ultimately talked me out of them, but flipped the tires and stuff, and took really good care of me. So if I do know if I need anything in that kind of realm, he's the guy I'm going to go take a look at. But I heard that you were back in his shop recently getting some rubber, I think, on the Jeep.
Yeah, just my Wrangler's getting up there in age, and it needed some new tires. And he had acquired I think 4. Well, he had acquired 5 from somebody, but one of them didn't fit, so he had 4. They're practically new, and he put them on, gave me a good price, and he cares about your time too, right? It's not just one of these things where it's like, leave the car with me and it's ready when it's ready. Like, he gives you a time. He cares about your time, and I'm just a big fan of the guy. And he knows. I mean, he knows. Most mechanics know their stuff, but he definitely knows his stuff, and he doesn't have time to BS you around, basically. So big shout out to Hashem and his crew at the Wheel Deal. 36 Bentley. I don't remember the phone number, Brock, but if you want to give it a shout there.
1-3-799-6014.
Nice.
Are you telling me you can't see that image, Pep?
Well, it's kind of small on my screen, but it's not your fault.
All right. So yeah, give him a call. Again, all you can ask for in these kind of businesses is honesty, and somebody who treats you well when you're going in there, and you want somebody you can trust and
knows his stuff.
He falls into. So there's only a handful of guys I'll trust with my vehicle, but he'll be one of them.
Yep.
Okay, let's hey, without further ado, we got a guest today. You want to do the intro?
Let's do it.
You want to give him the bio, or are we just going to bring him in?
Oh, well, first of all, this young man is the son of a friend of mine, I've known him since he was a little guy, and he's not so little anymore.
Not at all.
He is an OHL draft hopeful. He is actually, I consider him a friend of mine, as a matter of fact. Now he's big enough to be a friend of mine and not just the son of a friend. He is a great young man with an exceptional work ethic. And OHL teams, if you are watching and listening, you might want to have a look at Isaiah Obiora.
Everything litty, I love when it's hot. Turn to the city, I broke out the notch. Got some more millies that keep me a knot. I created history. It made
Get your own walk-up song, Isaiah.
Appreciate it.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here.
Contain your excitement a little bit. This is
No, I'm really excited to be here. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
So Pep says that you're big enough to be a friend now. I
guess so.
Because he's no longer willing to play you in basketball one-on-one. Which, he's self-admitted that he was not going to challenge you anymore moving forward.
He did say that. Yeah.
There again, I don't know if you are wired or that the Quebec internet is very sketchy.
Yeah, I can't really I can't really hear what you're saying. It's like really choppy right now.
All right. Bring you on into the show real quick. If you can hear what's going on. Well, we already got our first comment. I don't know if you can see that. Michael Ferreira has commented the last time he saw you were knee high.
I was definitely a lot shorter when I saw him last.
Very big difference where you are right now. Okay. Can you hear me, Isaiah?
A little bit. It's just really choppy. I don't know why I can't hear you too clearly. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi. Yeah, I can't.
It may not be. Maybe Mike is saying he's not hearing us very choppy as well. So I am not sure what's going on. The show must go on to a point. It's a matter of whether or not everybody can hear us. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Isaiah, can you say something here, bud?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit. Bit better. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Sorry, I got booted out there again. I'm not sure if it's my end or if it's StreamYard, but it's been kind of choppy. And anyway, we're here now. Can you hear me, Brock?
I can hear you. Everything on my end seems to be okay, but we did get a comment from one of our listeners who says that you can't hear, kind of choppy. So I really am not sure.
You are extremely choppy.
Yeah, you're really choppy for me as well.
All right, I'm going to leave it. You guys continue. I'll be right back.
Okay. Perfect. Boom. Isaiah.
All right.
It's going to be just you and I for a second here, bud. And I have some questions for you moving forward here. We're sorry about the technical difficulties. There might be some. There's some bad weather in the area. I think there was some bad weather, and that can affect sometimes our platform here. So please forgive us. But welcome to the show. And did Brock give you the intro? Did we play your song? Did you at least hear your song?
I did hear the song. I really appreciate that. That was nice. That got me hyped for sure. Definitely.
Yes, no problem at all. We were hyped to have you. So, just we had some questions for you. You're a young man who's risen through the ranks quite quickly. Can you describe your experience playing in a sport that's predominantly white? Can you talk about your experience and how that's been moving forward here? And how have we evolved over the course of the last calendar year? Because, it's been a difficult year in sports and essentially in the world. Has that affected sports at all? And how has it been for you to play in a sport that's been predominantly white?
Well, I mean, to start with, at a young age, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I really didn't notice a difference at all. I wasn't treated differently. Maybe I just didn't notice it, but I honestly felt that I was treated as equal as everybody else. But throughout the years, I feel when I hit around Major Adam was when I first realized a bit of maybe microaggressions or some sort of racism from a coach who, sat me for a couple periods because I was at a, little getaway birthday party for my dad, and that was honestly like the first time I really realized or really noticed any sort of racism. But I mean, it definitely, I want to say it's gotten worse, but I only feel it seems like it's getting worse because of my age and how I've matured and I'm able to like realize these type of things. So overall, it's not the worst, but I feel it can get better.
It's a very interesting point. I think also too, you are now 16, 17?
Yes, just turned 16.
So you're 16-year-old. I think, you're starting to develop a better awareness at the rink in life in general. And I think you're probably just sort of realizing the world around you. But, you maintain such a good composure. You're such a polite young man. I think it's just, you will be a force of change for sure, whether it's hockey or in this world. And, I know your parents very well, and they're wonderful people. You're surrounded by just great support. Let me ask you something about the pandemic. And, it's been tough for youth sports across the country, across North America, really. Players are losing a season, what's now amounted to a season and a half. What have you done to keep busy? Like, what have you done for training? Like, how's it been for you? Have you kept up your fitness? Have you been able to get on the ice? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so we did end up having kind of a season. I mean, we're able to practice around 3 times a week and then able to scrimmage against the team twice a week. So I was, able to play a little bit of hockey. It wasn't fully, the game that I'm used to playing. There was no contact allowed. Other than that, though, I've really kept busy, training at Capital Strength with a few teammates and friends. I've been going to Fit for Less, a gym near my house with a couple of my buddies. I've been working out at one of my friends' home gyms. I've, been working out here at home, going on runs, shooting pucks, stick handling, trying to stay active. But I've also been, branching out to different sports. I've been training for football. I've been doing some football and like speed work type of training. I play a lot of basketball as well. Started doing some boxing type of training, just anything to really keep me active and try and keep in good shape.
Hey, let me tell you, that's great advice. Whoever's giving you that advice is giving you some sound advice, because cross-training essentially is very beneficial for a person of your age to do many sports, to develop the skills, the agility, the lateral movement, the vertical. I mean, not that you need a vertical in hockey necessarily, but it all helps, right? It all helps. And more power to you. If somebody your age, if there was a kid your age who wanted to start exercising and is a hockey player, maybe doesn't have the aspiration of going to the OHL or NCAA, but wants to get better, wants to get tougher, wants to get whatever. Can you maybe give in a few words or less describe what you might do on a typical routine, on a typical day? Like a typical day for like a workout. A workout? Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you're able to, stick handling just with a little ball can always help, shooting pucks via the net. Looking up and researching different type of things related to hockey can also really help you improve on specific things. But I mean, I love branching out different sports. You can gain a lot of different, key things to help you out in your main sport as well. But I mean, just practicing is just the best thing. And also, I really like competition. So if you're able to compete with a couple buddies, that can definitely help out. Speaking of competition, you and I still have some unfinished business. We do, in a certain laneway on a certain street somewhere. Yeah, I'm actually afraid, because the last time I played you were young. I mean, geez, you would have been. When did you move into that place? 2014. So you'd have been like 9. I was young, and I was a man still. So yeah, now I'm concerned. But I'll you know what? I've got this summer to work out and to get ready for you. So just for those of you who don't know, Isaiah's a pretty good basketball player too. So yeah, I've got my work cut out for me. I'll go easy on you. Don't worry. I'll go easy on you. Thank you. I appreciate that. What's your favorite exercise in the gym? Like, what do you like to do in terms of weights? Ooh. I mean, I feel everyone likes this, but I really like doing bench. I mean, working out chest and bench is probably my favorite right now. But I've also really, I've been doing a lot of, training legs a lot. So squats is also a really good one. Like Bulgarian split squats as well. Those type of workouts, those are starting to be my favorite as well. Beautiful. And I mean, that's again, bench is a popular one with a lot of men, you're right. But certainly, the lower half of our bodies are where we generate all our power. So you just keep doing you. Brock, are you back?
No, am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're very choppy, and you turns us choppy a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It kind of makes my voice a little choppy. Interesting, but okay. Well, you know what? He's this is the first time, Isaiah, that we've ever had this level of technical difficulty on his end. It could be weather. Hopefully, he can come back and be less choppy. But I'm going to continue on because I want to ask you, when you're taking, there's two routes to the NHL potentially, right? Mm-hmm. There's the NCAA route and the OHL route. Can you discuss maybe some subtle differences between the two? If you, for example, if you took the NCAA route, what would that take? And if you do the OHL route, what would that take?
Okay, so for the NCAA, you are able to play as soon as you graduate high school. So that's at 18 for most people. The OHL, you can start as early as 16 years old. So this is my draft year this year. Hopefully I can get drafted, as a 16-year-old. And I'll be able to go into that route of hockey. So the OHL is, it's a really competitive league. It's probably the number one route to the NHL.
The OHL?
The OHL, yeah,
okay,
is like the best route to go into the NHL right now. But the NCAA is creeping up. It's also a really good, route to get into the NHL, and it also allows you to, pursue a degree while you're playing. So it's also, great academics in NCAA. But then the OHL as well. Every year you play in the OHL, they pay 1 year tuition in a Canadian school. So, there's both pros and cons for academics and for athletics.
Interesting. I did not know that. Yeah. So every year you play in the OHL, they will pay a year's worth of tuition?
Yep, in a Canadian school.
Fantastic. Brock, did you know that?
I did.
Can you hear me? Yeah, yep. We can hear you for sure. Yeah.
We can hear you.
All right. Mike pulled himself out. He thought maybe it was his thing. So I don't know if this sounds any better or not.
A lot better.
You sound crystal clear.
All right, Mike's the problem. I got control now. I did know that because obviously, the queue is very similar. So when we went to school, Isaiah, obviously, one of your mentors, Gordo, when we went to school with a lot of Hull Olympics at the time when they were winning the Memorial Cup and making some real good pushes. So I found out from those guys sort of the deal and how it went down because it's a tough choice if you have to choose a free education versus pursuing your professional aspirations. Mm-hmm. But if they have something to this effect that allows you to almost do both, or at least to say, I'm going to focus on my athletics right now, and then if it doesn't work out, I can go to school and do it at that point. Mm-hmm. That does make the decision a little bit easier. But that's what I wanted to ask you is how does somebody in your shoes decide? So for me, football, you need academics for football. There is no two ways about it. But for hockey and, baseball, there's a couple other sports like that, you have these two paths that, you almost, the fork in the road for you is a lot earlier. How do you go about making that decision? Is it just, if I get drafted in the OHL, I'm going to go there? Or are you still on the fence as to what's the better route for me?
You know what? Right now, I'm really on the fence. I haven't been able to decide which route I think would be best for me, but it's a really tough decision. I'm still, debating about which is the better route.
And you still getting drafted doesn't affect just being drafted doesn't affect your eligibility in NCAA. It's not until you actually sign with them, correct?
I'm pretty sure you can still sign, but you can't take any payments from them. You can't. Sorry, not payments. They can't pay your way there and back from your hometown.
Any freebies?
Any freebies? You can't take any merch. You can't take any equipment, anything like that, or you're considered professional for the NCAA, so you won't be eligible.
Which is good, realistically, from a NCAA standpoint. Those are rules that need to be changed and adjusted now to today's day and age, because that should affect you. But
I agree, and Brock, it's not limited to hockey. That's across the board, right? In NCAA.
Yeah, when you get into these, football players are getting dinged for anything. If you get a discount at a restaurant on a regular basis and somebody complains about it, that's you're accepting gifts from somebody. So it's a restaurant that's close to the stadium and they're like, oh, you're a football player. Yeah, we'll give you half off or something like that. You can get dinged for all that kind of stuff because the NCAA, as soon as you start getting any kind of gifts, or anything that's free, I mean, you're banned.
Here's a question for you, Isaiah, and I know that you're on the fence, and it's kind of it's a really tough decision. It's a very tough decision as a young man. It's tough, but if you were to be drafted in the OHL, would you prefer to play for your hometown 67s, or does it really matter at this point?
To be honest, it really doesn't matter. Whichever team believes in me and wants me to be in their organization, I'd be happy to play with them. Doesn't really.
Are you ready to leave home?
I don't know if I'm ready to leave home yet. I'm not quite sure, but I don't know. I still have time to think about it.
How are you dealing with that? Like Pep and I, we talk about mental health quite often, and it's obviously something that's very dear to Pep, and he does a lot of support for those kind of issues. Mm-hmm. Now, from a guy who went through some decisions, again, a little bit later in life than you, but even from a standpoint of like trying to choose a school and where I would fit in, all that kind of stuff, the pressure and stress that was on me at that time, like I remember vividly breaking down on the couch with my mother, like I couldn't really absorb everything and really take it in. It was so much. How are you dealing with that kind of stuff at this point?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel exercise like the best thing for me. Like I always find a way to, not, throw out my emotions, but really just, keep a good composure and like stay as happy as possible just from any sort of exercise or activity. It can be sports, it can be exercising, just stuff like that is honestly just keeps my mental health and keeps me like extremely sane. That's the best way I deal with all this stuff. 16
or 22? I can't. That's almost like the perfect answer. I will say this, knowing your parents, you have the greatest support system that a person could possibly want. Much like your parents, Brock. The greatest support system that you guys could possibly need is there. So use them. If I'm giving an old man advice to a 16-year-old, which you probably don't even need, but I am your de facto agent, and we've already discussed this. When you were 9, you pressed your thumb on I think it was a piece of paper. I had put ink on it, and anyway, it's legit. Gord said it was legit. So
it was Play-Doh. He took his Play-Doh that he was playing with.
Yeah. I have it wrapped up in a. It's wrapped up in a Ziploc bag. So anyway, I'm your agent. We'll talk about money later.
We'll talk about it later. Right?
How much do you bench?
You know what? I really haven't benched that much in a while. But a month ago I was benching 235 for around like 6 reps.
That is very impressive. Now that's the air horn. If you didn't hear that, Brock, you give it again. I cut you off. So when we talk about in the weightlifting world, when you can bench press your body weight for 1 rep, it's exceptional. You are doing 150% of your body weight, probably. What are you weighing in now?
Right now I'm around 185 to 190. I'm around that range.
So you're doing almost 50 pounds more than your body weight for how many reps?
6 reps. Around 6.
Brock, you can go ahead and give that air horn again.
Oh, that's pretty good though.
Yeah, that is exceptional. Wow, I saw a video of you. It must have been probably a little bit less than 225 or 235 that you pumped out for. And I didn't, when Gord told me about it, Gord and I were having a bite to eat one night. And he had told me about this, and I said, well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, 80 repetitions of anything is remarkable. I'm like, okay, well, he goes, no, he bench pressed 80 repetitions at a would have been about half your body weight.
Yep, half my body weight. Yeah, around 84 times. Yeah.
So I saw the video, and by rep 70, even my pecs were starting to explode. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That is remarkable at any age to be able to do that. The muscular endurance required for that. That is insane. How did you? Was your chest on fire after that?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I don't know how I did it. I just didn't feel it, so I guess that just helped me keep going. It was just that was insane. That was I don't know. That was crazy.
Brock, have you ever lifted anything for more than 20 reps? Like I know that's probably my max for things in the gym.
I have, but just now, like even counting to 80 would probably
right.
like just think of it. Like, when was the last time you would have just counted to 80?
Never.
No, never.
If I had money, maybe
like, enough. Let alone try to push weight.
Yeah, it was an insane video. If it's still out there, I'm not sure where it is. Probably in a vault somewhere. But what can I say?
These are the things you need to release as you're getting close to draft day. You need to release these kind of social media gems.
Well, I think they're there. I think they're there. I think that's the plan. But Brock, and do you have anything you want to add to this? I know you had some technical difficulties, and we apologize for that to our listeners. But that's sometimes that's what happens with live radio. We figured it out. We're back on the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
We are back on the ice, sounding better, so that's good. We found out what the issue was. Our producer Mike is set up, so he's probably not hardwired in. Anyway, this will hopefully be all that of the past when we start getting together in person to do these things.
Exactly.
But no, I think basically, what would be the one thing that you would be wanting to tell? Like, I know you're only 16, but it's hard for me to talk to you like you're a 16-year-old because
sounds like a man.
Because you sound like a man. I mean, the last time I saw you was during COVID. We had rented some ice. Mm-hmm. I was trying to figure out playing goalie because I got goalie stuff. I'm like, I want to practice. And so out of sympathy and I think some care on Gord's part, he said, you know what, we're going to go humor this big dummy. And, we show up and you're walking around with a Red Blacks t-shirt on, and I thought you were the guy Moten. Remember the guy, the big defensive lineman for the Red Blacks forever?
Yeah.
I thought it was him at first. And he's like, that's Isaiah. I'm like, what are you talking about? We get on the ice, and I can still see, like, even through the video, I can see you staring at my blocker side because you totally destroyed it on multiple occasions. And basically, I hung up the skates after that. But it was a lot of fun. Monster. But again, as a 16-year-old, what would you want to say to, the 12-year-old who's, following your footsteps? Somebody of color who's playing hockey or is facing some challenges through this sport. And I know there's a lot of people who sort of have helped lead the way for guys like you to come through. Like, a friend of mine, Peter Worrell, who played for the Olympics back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was 20 plus years ago. But guys like that who have come through, again, he's nowhere near as skilled as you are, but he had a place in that game. And, so now what would you then say to somebody who's 4 or 5 years from where you are and coming through? Like, what kind of knowledge can you pass down to them, or what advice would you give them?
First is obviously, as everyone would say, just work really hard. Like for me, I was sometimes, not always looked at as the top player, even though numbers could have said I was at, just to work hard so you're unquestionably, able to be put on the ice at certain times or seen as a top player or get a leadership role, like get a letter, something like that. So work hard, definitely persevere, try and not, stress about the little microaggressions that come along the way of playing as a colored player. Just, stay focused, have tunnel vision, just try and persevere and get as far as you can as possible. And, the last thing I'd say is just to be confident. I mean, I feel when I was younger, confidence, I didn't have the most confidence in myself because, of a lot of different things, but being confident is honestly super, super important. Just, just to help you improve as a player and just do the best that you can do. Just, being confident is just huge.
Well,
and he's 16. Sorry, Pep. He's 16, but you are telling a message that would have resonated with me. Like now, if I go back and I look at all the issues I had, confidence would be the number one issue I had through my whole sports thing. And that was the biggest hurdle I've ever had. So for you to bring that up and understand that at this age is paramount. And just on that alone, your athletic gifts are obviously great too, but that alone is a measurement that I know you're going to be very successful in the future. And I think that's a great message. Sorry, Pep, to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say something very similar in that everybody, you're going to reach a level. A lot of players do football, basketball, hockey, no matter what sport. The elite players who are playing in the younger levels, they reach a point where they get to try out for a team where everybody's as good as them. and then the coaches have to make a decision, right? Tough decisions. Well, what's the first thing they're going to look at? Is character, is hard work. Can they trust this player? What's he like off the ice? What's his family like? I mean, there's a lot of factors, and you check all the boxes off. So if anybody from the OHL or NCAA watches our show today, and this show gets out to a lot of people, I know this young man personally. I know his family, and I mean, you can't miss. You can't miss with a kid like this. You can't miss talent, charisma, personality, trustworthy, hardworking, good in school. I mean, what more do you want? So, Brock, I got to tell you, I was ecstatic to have him on the show. I'm proud to call you a friend, and I'm also proud to be your agent.
Yeah,
and we'll talk.
You're right. A friend and a client.
We will talk money soon. But I did want to thank you for coming on the show, and once again, sorry for the technical difficulties early on, but we got it settled. So,
thank you so much for having me on.
Quickly, what are your grades like?
My grades are gone a lot better this year. We've because of COVID, we have 2 different cohorts, so we're on one day, off one day, on one day. So that's really helped my grades. So they've been looking pretty good lately.
All right, because I got a Pipeline. Colgate's a pretty good hockey school.
You're right.
There you go.
Right. And exactly. Hey, I played with a guy, actually African American, Brian Owens, played hockey and football at Colgate together. Yeah,
really.
Cool. Yeah, you want to broaden your horizons, academics, athletics. Hockey and football?
That's crazy. That's insane.
I got you.
I'll talk to Brock about that, Isaiah, and I'll pass on the information to your
I appreciate
to your people.
You're getting cut out now. All right.
I appreciate it, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming in. That's amazing.
You.
Everybody's following. Make sure you guys follow that OHL draft. Let's see where you end up, and then decisions will be made. But you got obviously a great surrounding supporting cast. And again, reach out to either of us, to Yahoos, if you got any other questions that can't be answered.
Absolutely.
By those that you have. And we got some experiences that might come in handy. Anyway, again, reach out if you need to, but thanks again for showing up and suffering through some of those technical difficulties as well.
No, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
I'll see you this summer, my friend.
Of course.
Okay.
All right.
See you guys. Thanks
Take
again.
care.
What a kid.
Oh, man. He's, I was at Gord's last summer for a swim, and so I said, hey, where's Isaiah? Because it was COVID and they were still at home. And he's like, he's at the gym. I said, it was like 1:00 in the afternoon. I said, what? So yeah, he works out twice a day. I said, like, on purpose? Or like, is it just, he said, no, the kid loves working out. He just loves to work out. He loves to train. And it's just a really great thing to see. Anyway, he popped in, and he's one of those kids that's like, I said, hey, Isaiah, how's it going? He goes, fine, sir. How are you, sir? Like, he's that kid, right? Manners, polite, just, yeah, what you want your kids to be, basically.
And he talks about confidence. It's confidence, not arrogance.
Yeah.
And he does it to perfection.
I like that. What'd you say? Confidence, not arrogance.
Confidence, not arrogance.
Did you just coin that phrase? Is that something you read? Is that a Brock Fleming exclusive?
Brock Fleming exclusive.
I want to thank our executive producer Mike for leaving, because it's been good since he's. What was his? What was going on in there? So, long story short, folks, the technical difficulties we were having was based on the fact that maybe something on Mike's end just wasn't clicking. We miss him because he's super helpful. But
yeah, you can actually go and find out on Facebook who somebody put a quote in if I don't have their stuff, like their name and everything. But he'd also keep us on track and keep everything together. So again, now I'm trying to like work it on my end to get through it, which we will. But it's I don't know what happened. I think
Brock, let's
producer account, so maybe that's what it was, and he just didn't have good internet. Who knows?
That must be it. Let's quickly shout out the Wheel Deal again. I know we've already done it, but you know what? We want to. He is our official sponsor for today's show, and the Wheel Deal providing us great service this week. You know, complete auto service. If you need anything done, you just call 613-799-6014, and Hashem will take care of you. They're on 36 Bentley. Brock, what would you define that as? Ottawa South? No.
No.
West?
Bentley's kind of, Ottawa West. It's like Hunt Club in Maryville area.
Hunt Club in Maryville area. Ottawa West. Great little place. All right. Well, man,
song, but I feel like there needed to be some sort of music, so I put that in there.
You know what? That Isaiah interview got me. I've been on such a hockey downer. I mean, watching the Leafs and Habs, I actually fell asleep last night to it. It was Montreal could not generate any offense at all. It's a late tip off or a late puck drop, which is nice. We're not going to miss too much of the game. Couple of major league series ended this week, Brock. I wanted to get your opinion on what you thought was a bigger disappointment. The Oilers getting swept by the Jets, which that shocked me, or the Caps losing 4-1 to Boston.
The Oilers losing to the Jets at a sweep was more of a shock to me. I mean, the Oilers were,
what's their problem?
Arguably one of the best players in the world playing, and they shut him out the first game. As soon as they lost, blew a 4-1 lead in the third period of game 3, you knew it was over anyway. But I don't know. Hellebuck has played very well. You know, playoff hockey is a tighter brand of hockey.
Yep.
That's just what it is. And the Oilers play a pretty open style. They're flying when McDavid's out there, and they're all, and Draisaitl, like they're all over the place. But in the playoffs, again, I'm not exactly sure how that happens. How can you have such a wide open game at some points and then have the other team adjust so well in the playoffs to kind of keep things tight? But they did that, and Winnipeg just sort of dominated them, except for the lead that the Edmonton had in game 3, where I thought, actually I turned it off because I thought they were going to win fairly easily. And I said, okay, here's the series again. I thought Winnipeg played very well.
Yeah. Hockey is probably the only sport where the first round is a real toss-up for some series. Like every year we see it. Tampa Bay losing to Columbus one year. Then they lost to the Leafs lost to Columbus one year after finishing first. Like we always see that sort of a first round, one or two, usually from each conference, a bit of what I would call an upset. But I thought the Caps were built to win now. And them losing 4-1 to Boston in the fashion that they lost, I mean, it says a lot to Boston. I got to give kudos to Boston for every year they're a perennial cup contender. But picking up Taylor Hall at the deadline, I thought was really good. I mean, this guy is a good player, and he was playing on a bad team in Buffalo where everybody wanted out, and the team morale and the energy was just not there. But you gotta consider that a pretty big upset.
Yeah, I mean, did something happen to like the Caps goalie pulled something in game 1? I don't know if you saw Kelly Rudy go off on him pulling a muscle. He was like, goalies, you can get a lot of injuries and stuff, but the one thing that you cannot do, pull a muscle. Your whole job is to be flexible and stretched and warmed and everything. Yep. There is no excuse for you pulling a muscle as a goalie. That being said, I did play nets for a couple of things, and I pulled about every muscle in my body. But he's done it before, and he was very adamant about it. So I don't know if that played into it, because it was Craig Anderson afterwards, who I think is decent and hold his own, but he's not necessarily as good. So that might have had something to do with it. But I mean, Boston is Boston, and if you give them sort of an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
Look at the Leafs. They were up 4 goals, and they gave them a goal, and then that was over.
And Boston just, it's one of those teams where it's a culture of winning. Like
they picked up somebody else right at the deadline too.
I feel like they picked up a couple of guys, but there was a lot of movement this year at the deadline. This was a weird year too with the COVID and a shortened season, and some teams getting COVID through the locker room and having to play a bunch of games. I think it worked out okay for Boston. Of all the teams, I don't think they had any issues. So. Worked out well for them. Have you watched any of this Montreal? I know we talked about it in the opening, but have you watched any of this Montreal-Toronto series?
Yeah.
And your thoughts on it? Is boring, exciting? Does Montreal look as slow as I feel like they look like?
Yeah. Like I said in the opening, I think the Leafs have given everything to the Habs, other than game 1, which, again, when you see your captain go down and it's a scary injury, he's a friend, all that kind of stuff, I think that sucks the life out of you. No fans.
They deflated them. Yeah.
Everything out. And then Montreal won that game. Great. Once he was deemed to be okay, he wasn't All the injuries were not downplayed, but were addressed. I think that allowed the rest of the team or the Leafs to kind of regain their composure and say, okay, he's going to be fine. Let's go out and play. And yeah, I did watch the games. I didn't sit there and I was on the edge of my seat as I would normally be for a hockey playoff kind of situation. I think that has to do with the fans. But for the most part, they were fairly tight games too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just look at the actual resume of the plays that happened in those games, it should be more excited. I should be more excited than I was when I was watching it.
Well, I'll tell you right now, in the last 2 minutes, there's been a breakaway for Spezza, and he didn't score. He was just 1-on-1 with Price. We'll try to go 5-hole. And as I turned my head to the left here, Marner and somebody else were on a 2-on-1, and Marner took a shot, and Price has basically kept them in the game within the first minute and a half here. Montreal's defense is just to say they're overrated would be an insult to overrated. Like, I like Weber. Weber's a tank. Weber's a hitting machine. He's got a cannon. But the rest of those guys are really just they're third line pairings for most other teams. And the fact that Montreal is sitting this Romanov kid who was a hitting machine all year, the fact that they traded Drouin for Sergachev, I think is really it's painful to talk about because as we all know, Drouin isn't even in the lineup. So, I think Bergie has to take some of the responsibility for how this team is constructed. And the way they were constructed, Brock, suited Claude Julien's style. Then they fire him after starting 7-0 or whatever the season was. They fire him after some adversity and bring in this kid Ducharme, who has really been unimpressive. I'll be honest with you. He kind of has the mold of Sheldon Keefe, that young guy with some dynamic thoughts or whatever, however you want to describe it. It hasn't worked. As a Habs fan who's watched a few of the games recently, I just feel like it hasn't worked. Maybe I'm not giving him enough time, but your thoughts on making a coaching change that quickly for a guy like Julien, did it affect the Habs in a positive or negative way?
How it affect the Habs is sort of, I can't really answer that as to whether it was positive or negative. The fact that most coaching changes comes from pressure from the outside, a lot of it. And I think that,
so who was feeling the pressure? Bergie? Bergie was feeling the pressure to make that move?
I would say so. I think, I think a lot of times it comes from fan base and media and all that kind of stuff too, as to needing a change, needing to refresh the blood. And coach is always the first one to go and say, if we can just change that, then we can move forward. It's just if somebody talks about what's the GM for the Leafs name again?
Oh, Dubas?
Dubas, okay.
Kyle Dubas?
So you say, we give you this kind of team. If the Leafs lose this one, Dubas has got to be out. And you say, what more can he do from a GM standpoint of saying, how many more pieces can I actually give you?
Absolutely.
You can't put the puzzle together.
Yep.
That's not on me. I'm giving you all these pieces. So it's usually going to be the coach. They'll say, okay, you know what? We're going to change that. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of pressure for appeasing fans, appeasing media, of making decisions, maybe preemptive. And, Julien is a guy who's had a pretty good track record. We talked about the Olympics back in the day. I'm pretty sure Julien was the coach at that point too. He has a winning pedigree and a French guy in that sort of market. You'd like to see him get a little bit more rope, I guess, in those kind of situations. But you got guys sitting in the wings, other guys waiting to step up. You get pressure from media, fans, whatever, and you make those choices. It's just, I don't know.
And I was supportive of the move from a perspective of they looked like they were not listening. I think that his voice had gotten old as is going into his third full season.
Yep.
But it was the hire, I think, that upset me most as a fan. I never heard of Dominic Ducharme. Okay,
just juniors at the time.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I see. I was unaware of that. I mean, I probably knew that at the time, but I just as a Montreal minor league coach, I mean, he's coached too. He's coached Suzuki for a little bit. They picked up Suzuki in a trade, and he basically was in the lineup right away. So he barely coached Suzuki. He may have coached Kotkaniemi for a couple of years while he was down there. But who else? All the rest of the guys are veterans who've never played for him. So he comes up. I mean, does he have control of the locker room? Does he have that kind of personality? I mean, is Shea Weber going to listen to the Dominic Ducharme? I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense to bring in a young guy like that when you've got not necessarily a young team. Like Josh Anderson isn't from there. Toffoli's a veteran guy from the exterior. None of these guys ever played for him before. So like, Keefe made more sense because the Leafs young brass played for him in the minors. So that made a little bit more sense. No?
Yes and no. I mean, if there's if you're a voice in the younger one in the minor league system, and then you move to the top, like unless it was a real good relationship at that point, then that relationship's going to carry over. So if you don't have the locker room, let's say as the minor league, and then you go to the majors, it's not going to change. Sometimes having somebody who has no connection to anybody in that locker room necessarily is a fresh voice. Everybody's starting from scratch. It's not, oh, well, I know this guy. I know him. I played for him last year down there. This guy doesn't, whatever. It's like, hey, we're a team. We have a new captain, and he's the guy that's leading this ship, sort of thing.
Fair.
Comment from Mike Frere saying that he thinks that Muller would have been given a shot at the head coaching spot if he spoke French.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'll tell you,
a good spot.
Well, you know what? I don't know. So let me Mike's been pushing for Muller to get a head coaching job for years, and it wasn't just in Montreal. Mike, you're a huge fan of Kurt Muller. I know that. I know that from knowing you all these years. Is Kurt Muller a good head coach? He had a taste of it last year when Julien was out for the playoffs with, I think he had a bit of a heart issue there. He's had his opportunities. I mean, he's a great name, right? He's a great name. He's got a lot of history with the Habs and the Cup and the trade for. I get it, but I don't know if he's a good fit either. I mean, he's been there for a long time as assistant, and he was in charge of, I believe, the power play or the penalty kill, one of the two, and they were always ranking bottom of the league. So I mean, I don't know. Anyway, look, moving forward, another series that ended, Colorado swept St. Louis. Nazem Kadri suspended 8 games for a hit. This guy's a repeat. He's becoming a repeat offender. You know what? My thing with Kadri, I don't think he knows what kind of player he is. I don't think he understands how skilled he actually is, and he doesn't need to do these things. That was a clear headshot. Did you see the hit? Number one, number two. What do you think of the player?
I didn't see the shot. But as a player, the way you defined him right there was probably spot on, because even when his time with Toronto, I felt like he was kind of trying to play a role that was outside of his skill set, forcing that, like, not instigator, but just kind of like an agitator a little bit, and taking those cheap shots where he did have a lot of talent. And I don't know if it was overshadowed or if there's too much pressure in Toronto. So I felt, okay, a guy who was trying to, because when he was coming in Toronto, he was very much kind of, is he going to be in the lineup? Is he not? Like, where does he fit in? And he was I could see him trying to work and make a statement of saying, I got to be in the lineup in some sort of facet. Fine. I kind of got that. But maybe that's just, he's transcended his game because of that, and he hasn't really adapted. But you're right. He's a very skilled player that doesn't need to be doing that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And, skill's never been I don't think skill's ever been the issue. Even in Toronto, people knew how skilled he was, but just leave the grease to the greasers. Like, I just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And he had a good season in Colorado last year. I think, that was, everybody thought, okay, it's a good fit. And then, you regress when you do these things. So anyway, I believe he's going to combat the call. I mean, he's going to, him and his team, him and his brass. Yeah. The word slips my mind. He's going to appeal. Decision. Combat? What am I talking about? It's getting late, gang. It's getting late. Yeah. He's not going to fight anybody for it. He's going to appeal it. And I think during the appeal, I've ever seen you not know a word. Lose it. I've gotten way too much sun in the last 3-4 days, and it's starting to affect my vocab. So forgive me. There's other series going on. Islanders 3-2 up on Pittsburgh after Pittsburgh's goalie big gaff last night. But listen, that series is going 7 if you ask me. Nobody, when they talk about McDavid being the best in the world and stuff, don't count Sidney Crosby out for a lot of this stuff. I had a video queued up. I took it off in case it was part of the problem with their technical stuff. But just the plays in this series alone from a defensive standpoint shows what kind of player this guy is, where he's jumping over goalies and stopping a goal with his stick, or he's, finding the wide open man and able to dive and get a stick on the puck instead of a guy having a gaping cage. Like Sidney Crosby is a gamer, and he's still, and probably will always be, one of my favorite hockey players, but he's still got it. He may not be, as flashy as he used to be, but his awareness on the ice is as good as anybody's.
Yeah, I have to agree. And, I know the play you're talking about. And, I think Sid the Kid knows, like, the window in Pittsburgh, although he's still playing at a high level, the window with him and Malkin is starting to close, if it hasn't totally closed. So, he knows he's got to do everything he can to get out of this first round. And once a veteran team like that makes it to the second, third round, it's who knows. But I think they
picked up somebody at the deadline. And that's what I was thinking, not Boston. It was them picking up Jeff Carter.
Great little pickup. Carter has a history of liking the party. I know it was tough not to in LA when you're playing in LA, but great pickup, good hands, good goal scorer. I mean, that's, but veteran guy.
In the net,
yeah. Vegas up 3-2 on Mini. That's that series started, I think, 2-0 Mini. So good on Vegas to come back. Vegas is a really solid all-around team. Carolina 2-2 with Nashville. I couldn't believe Nashville came back. I mean, Carolina is the best team in the NHL on record. But Nashville is one of those veteran teams that kind of been there, was under the radar most of the year. I think they just squeaked into the playoffs. But that's a team with a lot of guys who have playoff experience. Duchesne's starting to play well. They still have all those guys. Ellis on the back end. Wow.
Fans, packed house.
Yeah.
One of my favorite old linemen.
Drinking,
pounding the beers with his daughter next to him and whatever, like getting the crowd ramped up.
Yeah, that's a feel-good story.
You need some, especially now, like you got to say, if you had fans like this all the time, does it start to get, can you block it out? You start saying, I'm so used to it that I don't really hear the fans. I don't, whatever.
Yeah.
You go for a whole season with nobody, crickets in that rink. And then you say, it's playoff time and we got a packed house. I don't care what or how many years you played in the NHL. I guarantee you that gets you pumped up way more than it did back in the day. It's like
absolutely. Absolutely.
So good on them. Those are home games. Those are big wins for that team.
We got Tampa Bay with a 3-2 lead over Florida. Again, Florida, I believe, was higher in the standings. This is a good series. It's by no means over, but Tampa's a well-coached team. Again, another veteran team, like you said on the podcast last week. Stammer on the one wing, and Kucherov, and all-world goaltender. So they got all the pieces. Of course, they have Hedman and my guy Sergachev. Oh man, how good would he look in Montreal right now with Romanov and Weber? Oh, and Petrie. That's got to be up there with some of the worst trades in Montreal history. Maybe next week we'll do a top 10 worst trades in Canadian hockey teams history.
All right.
That'd be a good one. Anyway, we don't do that this week, but I'm starting to get into it. Matt Putvey and Troy from last week got me going a little bit into hockey playoffs, and I'm starting to make the turn. I'm not fully invested yet, but I'm getting there.
Montreal, Toronto does help. You know what I mean? Like it was this the first time since 90. Like there was an opportunity back in 93 when the Leafs had got beat by Wayne Gretzky's cheating, and then ended up playing the Habs in the finals. But it would have been Toronto, Montreal in the Stanley Cup finals at that point. I remember thinking how big that would be in this area because there were no Senators at the time.
That would have been huge.
This is the first, Montreal and Toronto haven't played each other in the playoffs since then, right? Because
since 79.
Yeah. Okay. So I should. Hey, all right. I'm already more excited again for it.
Yeah.
You see the historical relevance of it, but
for sure,
this is helping get the excitement from hockey for sure. Seeing fans down the States, that's just it. We got to do something here. We got to start opening up. If Montreal's going to get 2,500 people, if they make it to that game, great. Let's start get people back into arenas already.
I was hoping that the NHL would have done if they would have separated the North once playoff came around, because as a Canadian teams fan overall, I mean, I may not like Vancouver, but I'm going to cheer for Vancouver over any American team if I'm watching hockey. I want to see the Canadian teams go as far as possible before they play each other. So I love the fact that Montreal and Toronto are playing, but I would have liked to see it in the third round or in the conference finals rather than one of these teams be eliminated right away. And now we're down to 2 Canadian teams rather than potentially 5 or 6 if everybody was eligible. So that's my only issue with this setup right now. But I'm with you 100% with it getting excitement. I'm starting to make the turn. We are. I can't believe how time flew. Isaiah was a great guest. We only had him pegged for 15, 20 minutes. We could have talked another 30 minutes with that young man. So,
in all fairness, when you have a 16-year-old come onto the show,
you don't know.
You expect a 10 to 15 minute conversation. Probably shorter answers.
Yeah,
that's just what you expect as a 16-year-old. It's not a huge conversationalist generally. Yeah. Isaiah is so well spoken and had real good thought out answers and takes on things that we definitely could have gone way longer with him. And I feel like we should have him on after he gets drafted.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to check his passport. I am not convinced he's 16.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he, does he have one of those Little League World Series championships or something like that?
That's right.
Starting pitcher for the under-9 team.
He's Miguel Tejada. That's exactly it.
Yeah, wasn't that? Did Albert Pujols get accused of being?
He did. I think he's legit, whatever he is. But Miguel Tejada was the one who was. I think he was sitting with Jim Gray, and they asked him how old he was and where he was born. He got up and left. So. I didn't expect that question. Goodbye.
Goodbye. He's got his fingers out trying to forget.
I should go. Look, we were going to talk Jays, but you know what? There's not a lot to talk about. They've lost 5 in a row. They're down to 500 again, 23-23. And they've called up Alek Manoah, who you and I have been talking about for months about how good this kid looks in the minors. It's a little quick to call him up, but his first start's going to be in the Bronx. Just a quick, Brock. What do you think about that?
Mistake.
You
can't.
He's too young.
Much as we want to see him up, man, going from these minor league hitters to the Yankees, who are also on like a 7-game win streak, I think, right now.
Yeah.
It's like they are a hot Yankees team.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to bring this kid up and throw him right in there. I know we're struggling. We got some injuries. We're having some real ugly bullpen outings and like games that are just slipping through our fingers. The offense is there. You're putting up 7 runs and you're losing 14-7 in extra innings. Like these are things that are just, it's painful to watch and very frustrating. I think to bring a kid like that, who's got all the potential in the world, you got to put him into a situation that is good for his confidence and for his first start. I always think of the Ottawa Senators and Alexandre Daigle, and I think how you handle these guys when they first get to the pros is going to almost dictate the rest of their career.
Potentially. Absolutely.
Potentially come in, get destroyed, get sent back down. And like, we've already talked about him for months. Like, there's a lot of expectations for this kid and pressure on him. And if he comes up and disappoints game 1, like that, even
can affect him.
You know what? He's young and we'll give him time, whatever. That's going to affect his confidence. And Isaiah brought it up. Confidence is the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
And, so you need to give him an opportunity to pitch in a game where it's winnable. He can get his confidence up. Maybe it's a shorter outing, pitch count, whatever it happens to be. But I really think getting a start against the Yankees is number 1 is going to be tough. Now, if he proves me wrong and he goes out and again, you go out and say you dominate the Yankees and win the game, then, your confidence should be sky high. But the odds aren't great.
Well, I like what you say there. And you calculate it a bit more and you put him against a team that has a lineup that he's faced in the minors in the last couple of years with a young team like, like Baltimore. Maybe he's faced some of those guys in the minors where there's some familiarity there. On the flip side, supposedly, scouts have gone down and watched his last 3 outings where he struck out 10, 12, 10, 12, whatever it's been. And they're really keen on this guy. They think he can actually... And on top of that, they're desperate. They need starting pitching. They don't have any right now, so they're desperate. So he kind of fills a need on all levels. But I will say this: the Tampa Bay Rays do not bring up any guys until they are 100% certain the player can stay on the roster. So like if you look at Toronto, they're constantly optioning guys up and down all the time, and until they run out of options. Tampa Bay does the complete opposite. They don't bring a guy up ever until they are like 110% sure that he's sticking with the ball club. And if you look at their team, every time I watch Tampa Bay, they have the same damn lineup. You ever notice that when you watch Tampa? Outside of maybe the catcher?
Well, we just saw that shortstop make his professional series debut for Tampa, that Wall kid.
Yeah. It's
he was great.
He was great, and he's there to stick. And they traded Willy Adames to get him. So I mean, that's how they operate. And I'm not saying it's better than any other team's strategy, but I kind of like it. I'm like, they're 100% sure we're not going to bring this kid up only to send him back down 50 times. So I like that strategy. Hey, we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see him pitch. That's all I got to say. He's a presence.
Definitely going to tune in to watch it.
Yeah, and he's a big kid, so looking forward to it. Anyway,
producer Mike just made a comment that he's only pitched professionally this year.
That's right. He was in A-ball last year,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So think of that jump. And if Tampa does things a little bit differently, I noticed that this week because they win games after the 8th inning, and the Jays don't.
11-game win streak for Tampa, and they know how to grind out wins, and they know what they're doing over there.
Yeah. It was such a frustrating 4 or 5 game stint for the
Jays. Hey, that was Brock, we talked about it. Those 2 big series, Boston and Tampa.
Monster.
We said we're going to know what the Jays are maybe after this series is done. Then they got to play the Yankees. But like they took 1 out of 3 in Boston, and I thought, okay, at least they'll take 1 out of 4 from Tampa and stay above 500. But, to get swept by the Rays, and they were all winnable games. They were all close games.
They were leading most of the games.
Yeah. So, you got to take something positive out of it. The fact that they were close games and that they're still above 500. So hang in there.
Last series in Florida. Get out of there. That was the other thing that was irritating is watching the Jays home game, having the bases loaded and guys getting walked in for the Rays and the place going nuts because they're in Florida. Get out of Florida. Go to Buffalo.
Well, it's a kiddie ballpark too.
Fans in Buffalo.
Nobody liked playing there. Pitchers and hitters hated it. The wind is blowing. It's unpredictable. Yeah. The sight lines are terrible. There's when you're playing outfield, it's like it's not a slow, gradual shadow. It's like blinding sun and then shadow. And how many balls do we see go over guys' heads? And it was awful. The players could not get out of there any faster, eh? So how about Vladdy? 15 jacks. He's batting .333 through the month of April and May. 39 RBI, which suggests that the 2 guys in front of him need to start getting on base a little bit more. And I'm talking to you, Bichette. You like what you've seen out of Bichette this year?
Bichette hasn't hit his stride yet. I find he's still I don't know. I find his eye is not quite as good as it was last year. Like he's swinging at stuff that's outside the zone. I don't hate on Bichette by any means. I just feel like there's more there that he needs to bring. Vladdy is so dialed in right now. Semien was a great pickup. I love Semien. I think he's actually going to be really good for Bichette. And with that pairing and at one point they had the most double plays, I think, in the league, which attributes to their relationship. But at the plate, I find Bichette's not the same as he used to be, or he's just a bit of a slump, I guess, more than anything. But Vladdy's dialed in. Like
he just hit number 16 tonight, according to Mike.
Vladdy did?
Yeah, he just hit another homer. So he's got to be over 333 and 16 jacks and 40 RBI, unless there were guys on base. That when Springer comes in and he's going to lead off, there's no question about it. It's a 2-run shot, so now he's got 41 runs. Great job. Springer, Bichette, do you slide Vladdy one player down, one slot down, so he can have more opportunities to get RBIs, or do you keep him in that 3rd slot?
I would like to see him slip down to 4, but they got Teoscar in there right now, right?
Right.
Who's all right?
I guess it's about protection, right?
I would. That's a tough call. I guess it depends on who would be in 5, right?
You're probably looking at either Lourdes Gricic or Biggio. I really wish they would have addressed the catcher situation. Not so much the Simeon, right? Simeon's going to have to drop down. Simeon would go to 5, which would be good because Simeon's a home run hitter. Great. He's more of a home run hitter than he is an on-base hitter. I think that would be a really good call. Mike, our producer in the back room, bringing the heat, bringing the absolute heat.
Again, you have Vladdy behind Teoscar now in that sort of setup. I think that makes pitchers go right at him a little bit more aggressively, which again, he can make them pay pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then if you have Simeon behind Vladdy too, then that's the same type of thing where, they have decision to make. Do they want to face Vladdy or they want to face Simeon? He's been pretty hot. I don't know. Once Springer gets in the lineup, you're talking 7-8 guys that are dangerous and then a catcher,
Yeah. I liked what I've seen out of Reese McGuire, by the way. I know we've been really hard on him and the jokes and this and that, but he's come in. He's been professional. He's thrown a couple of guys out from his knees, which is pretty amazing. But again, is he the answer? Are him and Jansen the answer? The right lefty combo? I don't know. Alejandro Kirk is a good catcher. He's got good pop, but he can't run the bases without getting hurt. And that's where he's going to run into some issues. Which actually he was just running the first when he got hurt, and he's been on the DL he's on the 60-day DL. So we're going to see what happens. Trade deadline. I mean, they got to, make some consideration here for upgrading the catcher position.
The catcher can be an upgraded position. I don't think it's detrimental to the team. I think they need to figure out getting guys pitching healthy.
Yeah.
Maybe, a few more guys in rotation, guys can go a bit deeper and not keep going to the bullpen so quickly. I think that's probably the biggest thing right now, and that would be the priority that I would want to go with versus the upgrade at the catching position.
Yeah, we talked about that, about last year's sprint to the 60 games, and what happened at the end. The bullpen burned out after 60 games. So, what are we out? What are we now? It's the 23, 22. So we're 46 games in, 47. And we're starting to see the bullpen wear out a little bit, injuries, and we're not even at the halfway point. So that's a concern for me. Is not so much their effectiveness. I think the bullpen's pitched pretty good, but the injuries, the up and down, the overuse, the starters going 4.5, and then you're bringing in a bullpen game from there. I still believe in the traditional starter giving you 6 to 7, and then you go set up, closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's 7, 8, 9. That was the new way of doing it. It used to be all the way to 8, and then you just bring in the closer. But
Kansas City Royals, baby.
If they're there, that's what it is. But I guess if you have injuries in the rotation, you got to start shifting arms and moving guys around from their normal spots, from starter to reliever to whatever. Now you start really screwing with the mojo of the whole pitching staff. And I think that's just where we're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Anywho.
All right. I think we're getting the it's 8:15, boys. Even though we had technical difficulties and stuff like that, we do have to wrap this up.
That's it.
Do you have any final words?
You know what? Enjoyed playoffs. Hockey and basketball are in full swing, and I want to get a little bit of NBA today, but there'll be a clearer picture next week. Lakers are in big trouble. If they don't win tonight, they're in deep trouble. I think they play tomorrow. The Suns are a good team. Anthony Davis has looked awful since coming back from injury, and the Lakers are just poorly constructed. It's time to put Marc Gasol in the lineup. This Andre Drummond experiment, to me, is not working. They're a mismatch. Brock, if you watch them next time, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, watch their next game if you have a chance. It's going to be a late game. Watch the first quarter and tell me what you think. They're just not the right fit for LeBron. There's not enough shooters on the floor, and their big men look slow and sloppy. And anyway, I want your point of view. If you want to watch the first quarter of their next game, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Beautiful.
Something to do.
Excellent.
I don't have anything to do. There's hockey playoffs on. Jays are on. As much as it pains me sometimes to watch, I'm hoping they could turn this around. Otherwise, again, shout out to everybody who tuned in. Thanks, Isaiah, for coming on, and Gord for suggesting that. That was phenomenal. We'll be watching the OHL draft in anticipation of an option for you. I'm not going to say your future team because who knows? Let me know. I'll make the phone call down to Colgate. You got your grades, got football and hockey. The kid's huge.
Oh,
like he's so athletically gifted and just a good size that imagine that, having like the option of saying, I might pursue the NHL, or I might pursue football. Like,
pretty sweet.
Guy's got a future ahead of him.
No doubt.
But most importantly, again, he's raised right. He's a good kid, smart, does the right thing. So the sky's the limit for him. Again, if anybody's looking or interested in fostering those two dogs, reach out to Pep or myself, Facebook, even on the group, and we'll get you in contact with the owners for more information. Other than that, shout out again to the Wheel Deal and Hashem.
Yeah.
And we are going to go out to, I don't know what I was listening to. It was on the golf course. And we played Saturday. It was 8 of us. It was for one of the guys' birthdays, 2 foursomes, playing scramble. We had money on every hole, playing back to back. We ended up playing like 30 holes that day, but had the tunes on, some old 90s type stuff, 2000s, and everything was bringing us back to the bar days. And I remember when this gentleman was the top of the charts every week. We're going to Sean Paul. Get busy.
Nice.
Woman, get busy. Just shake that booty non-stop when the beat drop. Just keep swinging it, get jiggy. Get drunk up, percolate anything you want. Call it oscillate if I don't take pity. Want to see you get live on the rhythm of my ride. And my lyrics up about electricity. Girl, nobody can do you nothing because you don't know your destiny. Yo, sexy ladies want war with us. You know they car with us, them not war with us. You know the club, them want flex with us. To get next with us, them can't vex with us. From the day my bond, I ignite my flame. Girl, I call my name and it is my fame. It's a good girl, turn me on till I earn them on. Let's get it on, let's get it on till I earn them on. Girl, it's all good, just turn me on. Girl, don't sweat it, don't get agitated. Girl, go and rotate, cause anything you want, you know you must get it. Come in my mention, don't ease the tension. Girl, run the program, just go and fit it. Yo, have a good time, girl, free up on the mind. Cause nobody can this, your man won't let it. Cause you are the number one, girl, wave your hand, make them see the wedding band. Yo, sexy ladies want power with us. You know the car with us, them not war with us. You know the club, them want flex with us. To get next to us, them not vex with us. From the day my bond, I ignite my flame. Girl, I call my name and it is my fame. It's all good, girl, turn me on till I earn them on. Let's get it on, let's get it on till I earn them on. Girl, it's all good, just turn me on. Come on, get busy, just shake that booty non-stop. When the beat drop, just keep swinging it, get jiggy. Get drunk up, percolate anything you want, because it's oscillating if I don't take pity. Want to see you get live when the rhythm is a ride. And my lyrics up about electricity. Girl, nobody can tell you nothing, cause you don't know your destiny. Yo, sexy ladies want power with us. In the car with us, them not war with us. In the club, them want flex with us. To get next to us, them not vex with us. From the day my bond, I ignite my flame. Girl, I call my name and it is my fame. It's all good, girl, turn me on till I earn them on. Let's get it on, let's get it on till I earn them on. Girl, it's all good, just turn me on. Yo, shake that thing, miss. Can I shake that thing? Yo, Annabella, shake that thing, miss. Donna, yo, Miss Jody and the one named Rebecca, yo, shake that thing. Yo, Anna, shake that thing. Yo, Annabella, shake that thing, miss. Can I, yo, hey, yo, from a girl, then sexy ladies want war with us. In the car with us, them not war with us. In the club, them want flex with us. To get next to us, them not vex with us. From the day my bond, I ignite my flame. Girl, I call my name and it is my fame. It's all good, girl, turn me on till I earn them on. Let's get it on, let's get it on till I earn them on. Girl, it's all good, just turn me on. Yo, sexy ladies want power with us. In the car with us, them not war with us. In the club, them want flex with us. To get next with us, them not vex with us. From the day my bond, I ignite my flame. Girl, I call my name, yo, it is my fame. It's all good, girl, turn me on till I earn them on. Let's get it on, let's get it on till I earn them on. It's all good, just turn me on.